for help, and we're trying to help everyone in this situation. And Baruch Hashem, as you already know, there's somebody who's giving very, very big sums of money to many families due to the very sad situation we're in, and we're very happy to be part of this. But as I was digging and I'm trying to help, we said up to 100 families, and I'm trying to find out. I call other rabbis, etc., to tell them that we're going to have money given to poor people, etc. And I see a name that is appearing in every single list. So on one side, I'm like, okay, this poor guy is really trying hard to get his parnasa, But the fact that every rabbi has him on the top of his list, and I know how insistent, this person is with me, for example. It's like if he does that to every rabbi, that they remember him, it's a great, he would be a great salesperson, because if when you want to buy an item, the first thing you think about is this company, then you're the best salesperson. You just want to create that people remember you. In this case, if every time we ask for tzedakah, etc., the first thing that comes to mind is this person, that means that this guy has a great PR. Okay, I'm not trying chas v'shalom to minimize the need that he has. I'm sure he has a great need. But at one point, we needed to say, hey, only one family, one transfer per family, one wire per family. Anyways, to make a long story short, there are people who unfortunately use their free time to collect money instead of going to work. And that's not chesed. When you help a person who could have been more productive going to work, then you're doing chesed, you're spreading, but without gevura, without any kind of control. When you spread without control, it's not the chesed that we know. You understand what I'm trying to say? So you need a balance between giving and holding. Always like this. Yamin mikale, Hashem creates a world, but he's going to stop. At one point he says, that's it. Now it's your turn to do. That could have been the understanding of Tzelem Elokim, absolutely. The same way he created, now it's my turn to create. So this is the more simple way of understanding Tzelem Elokim. That was Perek Aleph. Perek Bet, we discussed that the Torah is very precise when it comes to Tzelem. Tzelem, obviously, we're not talking about the physical image, but we're talking about the resemblance of function. So if Hashem does something and he tells you, I put you instead of me, you are B'Tzelem Elokim. Now you're taking, if you want, quote unquote, the place of Hashem. Hashem decided that it's your job now to take over what he was doing or what he is doing. That's a Tzelem. You're in the Tzelem. It's not a physical Tzelem, obviously. So therefore, you're taking the place, quote unquote, of Hashem at that point. Having said so, the Nefesh Ha'Chaim analyzed and said, okay, if that's just what the Torah meant, why Dafka did it pick the word Elokim? Tzelem Elokim, it could have been Tzelem Yud Ke Vav Ke, it would be more general, it could have been any other Betzalmo, he says Betzalmo, but Tzelem Elokim, if you want to be more specific, why Dafka, the word Elokim? We saw that throughout the Parashat Bereshit, the only term that is used for describing Hashem is the word Elokim. And it's actually what the most fascinating name of Hashem is Elokim, because it's the most controversial name of Hashem. Elokim, as was pointed out, is plural. Plural. Why would you make a plural word describing God when you're a monotheistic religion? Yeah, that's the worst thing you want to do, is to have a plural word describing the divine, right? So when you say Hashem Echad, fine, it makes sense. But Elokim, woo! Because Eloah, not Elohim. So, of course, so we discussed that. The Nefesh Ha'Chaim does not spell out the question. It's pretty evident from what he explains that's hinted, at least in the notes. And we saw that the answer he gives, basically, is that we have maybe the wrong conception of what Elokim means. Elokim is all the powers that exist. We call Elokim the Dayanim, for example. They call Elokim. Elokim is a very general term that talks about anything that has strength, anything that has power, energy, anything that is, something of significance in the world. You could really call it Elokim. That's a little difficult to understand when we were fed our whole life that Elokim really means God. Well, but you see many, many Pesukim and many expressions of the Chachamim that the word Elokim is used for any power. So really, the solar energy, the lunar energy, gravity, anything that has a certain power scientifically, for example, you could call that Elokim also. Now, obviously, it's going to be plural because there are many different aspects to all these powers. Every single law in physics is going to be maybe called Elokim. Anything that has power is going to be called Elokim. Of course, the danger of that situation is, and the definition of Avodah Zarah in the most simple way, is disconnection between Almighty God and those powers. When you identify independence to the solar power, for example, you have just crossed the line, or better said, you have severed the connection between the Almighty and those powers. And once you do that and you give independence to something, so then automatically this becomes Avodah Zarah. By the way, this is a fascinating topic that we're going to talk much later in Shar Gimel Perek Yud or Yud Aleph, I believe. There, the Nefesh Ha'Chaim is very, very, very tough with people. In other words, when you go visit someone, this is a very, very controversial thing that people do. We don't realize. But you go to a certain Mekubal, you ask for beracha. Why do you go to that person? Why do you go to that person? Because you believe in the power of that person. If you do that, you have just identified or singled out the power of an individual and separated it from Yud Kei Vav Kei in a sense. Because if you believe in a power that is independent, you have severed the connection. You have severed Hashem, Almighty God, with Elokim. And when you do that, that's exactly what Avodah Zarah is, right? I'm just trying to put in perspective and a halacha l'ma'aseh or something like this, and you're playing with fire when you do that. So to know how to do this, the Rav Chaim Yivoloshin discusses this. Says even if you believe in someone's power, you are playing with fire. This is a disconnection between the Almighty and Elokim. And right away, what is that? That's Avodah Zarah. This is not our sugya right now, but we will get back to that. It's a very interesting point of view that we need to discuss because a lot of people go and ask for beracha or whatever, and this is something we need to address. But so coming back to the subject, Elokim, the most fundamentals of Elokim is all these powers, and these powers that come, famous line that he says called Yesh Me'ayin, which means the difference between somebody who is a strong person. If you talk about koach in this world, it would be based on something. From a strong man, and I could, strong quote unquote, meaning that I'm creative and original, etc. I'm doing something with something. I could take a piece of wood and turn it into a beautiful art piece. Okay, beautiful. So then you're a great person. You're a strong person. Whatever. Okay, that's not what we refer to when we say Elokim. When God creates the world, He creates Yesh Me'ayin. The chidush of the Biriya is always that there's nothing prior to that. How do you do that? Okay, throughout the Biriyat HaOlam, the key word is Elokim. Oh, wow. So Elokim is really coming to tell me, Yesh Me'ayin. I'm doing something from nothing. How in the world is man supposed to be a reflection of that? And that's where everything got more complicated. What we saw last week in Perek Gimel was that this is, now that we know the words as Tselem as a comparison, and Elokim as a Yesh Me'ayin, all-powerful, etc., how is man supposed to take that position now? Hashem creates man, Tselem of what we learned. And what we learned last week is that when HaKadosh Baruch Hu does that with the man, he's giving the power of decision to men. At the creation of the world, Hashem says to men, not only am I giving you power of procreating and I'm not going to make kids for you, I'll be there, like the Gemara says. I mean, you need the involvement of Hashem for everything, but you need to be the main actor here. And if you don't decide to do what you got to do to have children or to earn a living or to do whatever, it's not going to happen on its own. You have to do it. Not only that, but even in spiritual things and everything. It's just a mashal of everything, which means that Hashem, we said an example for the 21st century, He gives the joystick of the game of the world to humans. And He says to them, now with this little joystick, you're going to tell me You're going to subtly going to be sending me messages by your actions, by your diburim, by your thoughts. Everything that you do is going to be a code. And I understand, I could decipher these codes, and I'm sitting next to you, but I'm not the pilot. I'm the co-pilot. You are the pilot. I'm not the one who makes the decisions. You're the one who makes the decisions, and I'm the one who's going to execute the decisions. So it's not God telling us what to do. It's us telling God what to do. And this now is going to be considered yesh me'ayin, because I'm doing something. I'm going to have consequences happening based on what I do. And it's not only in the negative, chas v'shalom. It's mainly and even more in the positive, which means that everything is like a circle. I send a message and the world receives. But this is always going to be coming from me. So Hashem put the rule in place, right? And then he says, he switches. I'm going to be the manager. You're going to be the CEO. You're the executive board. You send me based on the laws that I put, the constitution that is for the life, for the Torah, for the world. You send me the message, and I am going to take that message that you may not even understand what you're saying, but I'm going to take that message and I'm going to apply it to the world based on the codes, based on the rules, right? So the rule was, matzah, maror, sukkot, whatever, all the halachot. Okay, fine. And your mindsets and your heart and everything that is together. And I know how to take this, interpret it, and put it down now to the application of the world. That's how the world works. Now that's called Tselem Elokim, because Elokim is doing yesh me'ayin, and this is what we consider yesh me'ayin, because you're not having a direct connection with something. By doing something apparently, not directly connected, you're going to send a subtle message for something else. That's where we are called Tselem Elokim. This is how the Nefesh Ha'Chaim understands the sugya of Tselem Elokim. That's what we saw till now, correct? A good little summary. I mean, every time there's more layers that we're going to learn from here. But let's continue. For the ones who don't have the book, you could find it on Sefaria, or if you have the book, Chazak U'Baruch, then you could see it there. If you have the book, we are in Nefesh Ha'Chaim, Perek Gimel, Sha'ar Aleph, Perek Gimel, Ve'amru Zal Be'echa Rabati. וילכו בלא כוח. רבי עקיבא בשם ריבס אומר, בזמן שישראל עושים רצונו של מקום, listen to the lashon of the Chachamim, which is a choice of word that is very, precise. And they say, when the Bnei Israel עושים רצונו של מקום, they do the will of Hashem, מוסיפים כוח בגבורה של מעלה. They add, you hear the lashon? They add koach, they add strength, bigvura shel mala, to the strength of Kaviyachol Hashem. Kema de'atam ra'at, as the pasuk says, be'elohim na'aseh chayil. In Elohim, in God, na'aseh chayil. We will give strength. Ubizman she'en Yisrael osim retono shel makom. And when Israel is not doing the will of Hashem, כביכול מתישים כוח גדול של מעלה. So they are basically bringing down the strength of Hashem. דכתיב צור ילדיך תשי. צור ילדיך תשי. מתישים comes from the word latush. Latish is to bring down, to weaken. So what do you see from here? The lashon עושים רצונו של מקום, מוסיפים כוח בגבורה של מעלה, because at the end of the day, Hashem is the one who fuels everything. So when you do the רצונו של מקום, you are sending the fuel into Hashem to do what he has to do as a manager, as executing the decision that was made by the person who holds the joystick in our mashal. And if you decide to do the opposite, so then the opposite happens. The lashon is, again, you are מוסיף כוח בפעימה של מעלה, which is a very, very strong לשון. בכמה מקומות בזוהר הקדוש, there are several places in the Zohar, דחווה ברנש, so in the version that I have here, you're going to have, anytime you have the Zohar talks in Aramaic, but you have also the translation in parentheses in Hebrew. So here they say, for example, Chet'e ben Adam osim pegam lema'ala. The sin of a person has an effect above. Pegam lema'ala. V'chen lehefech, also the opposite. V'zeu she'amar hakatuv, this is what the pasuk says. It's one of the pesukim that we say in Hodu. In my shul, at least we read the Hodu every day. And there, what do we say? Tenu oz lelohim al Yisrael ga'avato. What does Tenu oz lelohim mean? This is a very, very strong lashon. It's very difficult to understand unless you understand that this is very precise. First of all, again, we have our keyword Elokim. Number two, Tenu oz. What's oz? Give strength to God. How do you give strength to God? What does it mean to give strength to God? Well, again, in the rule of the game that Hashem put in place is as if you switched around. You take my place, God says. I'm going to listen to your decision, and I'm going to execute the decision that you tell me. So it's as if you're giving, quote unquote, strength to God. Of course, you're not giving any strength to God. What it means to say is that you're sending the message to Hashem to do. So who's the doer of this earth? You are. You're not a passenger in the back of the airplane. You're the pilot. You're the one who does everything. This is very important. People think that their life is worthless. Chas v'shalom. You're not the replication of someone else. You're the one who makes decisions. And therefore, being so, it's as if you give strength to Hashem Kaviyachol, as if you give oz lelokim. You're giving oz, giving strength to Hashem, because you are sending the message to Hashem to do, which means that indirectly you have created yesh me'ayin. That's why you are called Selem Elokim. That's how the rule works. He brings another source, Zohar Resh Parashat Bo. In the Zohar, at the beginning of Parashat Bo, it says the following: in the parentheses again in the bottom in Hebrew, כשרוצים לעמוד על אותם מעשים של ישראל, על השם ודאי עומדים. They want to accuse something. It's against, quote unquote, מקטרגים, the ones, the accusers, if you want. על השם ודאי עומדים. שכאשר ישראל עושים מעשים שלא כשרים, when Israel does actions that are not kosher, whatever, are not correct, כביכול מתישים כוחו של הקדוש ברוך הוא. It's as if they are lowering the power of Hashem. Again, how? Now you understand how it works. Also, when you read the Zohar like this, it sounds very weird. If you don't have this introduction to understand a little better what it means, it doesn't mean that Hashem's power depends on you. It means that he decided in the rule that you make the rule, basically. I mean, based on the rules that exist, you are the one, based on everything that you do, your action, your thoughts, and your diburim, that is sending the command. Do this, do that. We don't fully comprehend how it works, but this is in you. So it's as if matishin kocho shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It's as if you are lowering the power of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, because now it's as if his hands are tied. I'll give you an example. If you tell your son or your daughter, right? You get a 100, you get over 90 on your test, and I give you a candy, right? Or IQ Rudy, when we were in shul, if I do a good hazanut, he'll give me a candy. If my hazanut is not good, no candy, mafi candy, right? Lately, no candy at all. It's been a while that I don't get candies. Anyways, so what does it mean? Can you give your son or your daughter the candy or whatever, the reward that you wanted to give for anything? Can you? Can of the word C-A-N? Yes, you can, but you've decided that you will not do it unless your son or your daughter has done X, Y, and Z. Now, I gave a simple example with a test, but it's the same thing with everything. Why at the end of a graduation, for example, why do you give a present? Why do you take your son or your daughter on a trip? Why do you give them a consequential present? Why? Because it's an achievement. So, but could you give that present without the achievement? Yes, you could. But you decided in the rule of the game that you will not. Why? Because you want a certain achievement, because you want to give responsibility, teach responsibility to your kids, blah, 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 blah. It's the same thing here. Hashem in the rule of the world is saying, look, you're not a passenger. You're going to be the driver. As such, since you are the driver, I want you to have responsibilities. I'm going to do what you tell me to do. Can he do it without you? Of course. Is he all powerful? Absolutely. What the Zohar means is that he decided to subject his decisions to your behavior. So you decide what direction you're taking the car. Being in the car, he's the one fueling everything, but in the direction that you're taking. Can he do it without you? Yes. That's not the rule of the game. The rule of the game is you're the player. And by the way, like I said last time, this is the best therapy for self-esteem. Habibi, you are chashuv me'od. Everything you do is going to be telling God in a very subtle way that what he has to do as following the game, the rules of the game. That's what he says. Matishim kocho shel mara. You have to read between the lines. Matishim kocho shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu. V'kasher osim ma'asim keshelim. When you do something positive, notim tokef v'koach leHaKadosh Baruch Hu. You're giving power and strength to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. V'al ze katuv tenu oz leElohim. Now the pasuk makes sense. Just that when next time you read it, it's a very hard pasuk to understand if you don't have this chat here. Tenu oz leElohim, give strength to Hashem. Well, who do you think you are? No, but that's the rule of the game. That means he can't release his strength unless you have released it, because that's how it happened. Gave you the key, gave you the joystick. How is it that Tenu oz leElohim in ma'asim kishim? This is a revolution in understanding how things work. ולכן אמר לאלוקים. וכן באלוקים נעשה חיל שפירושו בעל הכוחות כולם. So whenever you're going to talk about this, תנו עוז לאלוהים. באלוהים נעשה חיל, which means always mirroring that midah we call Elokim. Because in Elokim, you're going to find a key, which is בעל הכוחות כולם. How are you doing that? יש מאין. Okay? Not because you are nothing, but because you create something from apparently nothing, which means a disconnection between the result and the action. That's what you call, yesh me'ayin, something from nothing. So good, so far so good. This is the conclusion of Perek Gimel. That is, the answer to the question that we had at the beginning of Tzelem Elokim. Okay, Sha'ar Aleph, Perek Aleph Bet Gimel is just the beginning. Yes.
When you say you give strength to God, obviously there's no such thing as giving strength to God. Is it? Are you doing Oz Elohim on earth so that the other creations now they have more belief in God, and now God has more strength down on earth? Because there is no way to understand giving God strength or or something to that effect. Is it possible to be?
First of all, what you're saying, I think, is actually very, very interesting. It could be that when you do Ma'asim Tovim, then obviously by doing that, you understood what he said? It's very smart. When he said is that when you do Ma'asim Tovim, right, you are bringing, God's message to the world, you are doing the right thing, etc. So then by that, you have given power to God. That would be a pshat level, which I totally respect. I think is very nice. I believe, I already know the Sefer, so I could tell you that he's taking a different direction because he's talking more than just that. He's talking also, not more, a different direction. But that's true too. But I think I like the mashal that I gave before, that bottom line, God have put a rule in place by giving importance to the human being of being the driver of this situation, and by doing that and taking a back seat a little bit, not that he's taking back seat, that he's not involved or anything. No, that's not the point. The point is that he's taking back seat as not of giving a responsibility to the other one. Like we give the example of, if you finish, if you graduate, so then I'm going to give you a present. Again, can I give you a present without the graduation? Yes. But we've decided and we got to to the point that I would give you that graduation present only if you graduate. So a little bit the same thing. Look, man is doing things. Now, there's going to be, that's just the beginning. He explained afterwards how this is going to have ramifications back on earth, but it's bigger than earth. In other words, in the Ruchani world, there's a lot of mirroring from the top to the bottom. We'll get there, but definitely I don't disagree with what you say. It's not exclusive one from the other. It's a good perspective. I don't disagree. Quite the opposite. Yeah, for sure. Yes, Mr. Jacob.
Me?
I don't know. You raised your hand. It says there.
Oh yeah. So my question is, that you said that you gave the example with the whole graduation and everything, that basically if you do well, you'll get rewarded like on the spot. But now, so why is
one second. That's not at all why I gave that example. So let me rephrase. The only point of the example was that we put rules together, which means I could give you the present, right? Forget about a reward for you. You took it. I'm sorry, maybe I wasn't clear enough, but you took it the wrong way. It's not about the reward to you. Forget about that. If I say A, then you give B something else. It doesn't matter to who. The point is that we put a rule in place that I will not give you the present unless I will not give this other person the present. I will not transfer the funds if you don't do this. And I'm not trying to talk. I'm not focusing here on the reward. I'm only focusing in the example on we put a rule in place. Meaning, now that we put the rule in place, right? So although I could do it without the rule, but I decided not to do it without the rule. I'll give you another example, by the way. Maybe you like that one, Avi. I don't know if I should go in that, but if you go in the sugya of does God know the future, right? So you could talk about this a lot because there's a lot of different shittot, right? Can you bend the future? Is there a predestined world? Blah, blah, blah. Without getting too much into that, because it really is a totally different subject, and there's many shittot, and I love that subject, and all the shittot there. But I would say like this. Let's say, right? Let's say someone who says that God, does know the future, but he decided. Imagine a shita like this, right? But he decided not to look in the future, right? So he's saying he decided to close the eyes because that's the rule of the game. I don't want to see the future. I want you to make the future. Can he see the future? Maybe. I don't know. But he decided not to. Same thing here. Can God, I'm just going to throw it. Can God do X to the world? And again, it's not only this world. We are a little petite. We're only looking at here. But it's a little bit larger than us. But can God do without us? Of course God could do without us. He's all-powerful. If he created the world, he could continue the world. But I'll give you another example. Can God create, can God create a baby? Well, the Christians believe that he did, right? So can he do it? Yes, but he decided not to, right? That's what we call the laws of nature, which means that God decided by creating certain laws that he's not going to break them unless Yetziat Mitzrayim, whatever very extraordinary circumstances he decides to. But can he break them? Well, of course he could. He created them. Well, he can't break them, but he chose not to. And by choosing not to, that gives you a lot of power because he says, you're going to be signing the documents. Okay, so now that you're signing the documents, I will follow your lead. It doesn't mean literally giving him strength. No, it means that he decided to go by that. Again, and the mashal was only, when you graduate, you let me know. When you graduate, I'll buy you the present. It has nothing to do with the present in the mashal. It has everything to do with you're going to be indirectly the one telling you what to do. Because as long as you didn't graduate, I'm not going to buy you the present. Can I buy you the present? Yeah, I could go on Amazon and order it. It's going to be the same. It's the same order as before or after the graduation. It's not about receiving a reward. That's not at all what I had in mind, right? Just to be clear.
I was going to ask you the second question about Bechira, but you answered it. Thank you.
Well, I didn't really answer. I just started talking about it.
That's good.
But so you have a lot of these things. At the end of the day, when God decides to do certain things for the world, he's going to have somewhere to let go something, to have certain powers go, because he's all powerful. So where am I in all that? What is my role here if he could do it all without me? That's correct. But he chose not to. He decided not to do it without you. That's the strength of an all-powerful being, of saying, although I could do without you and I don't need your involvement, but I chose not to. And even more, I chose to subdue myself to you. Now that's shifting perspective completely. You're the driver, my friend. But imagine, I give you another mashal. Forget. I'm just, I'm thinking. If you have a better mashal, let me know. But I'm just giving you a mashal. Let's say, remember the old trains? The old trains, you had, you needed basically, like many, different kind of things. But the old train is a perfect example. So you have the driver, right? The driver of the old train. The driver of the old train is going to see the speed. He's going to do the, decide, to go right, to go, not really in trains, you can't really decide to go right or left, but whatever, let's imagine that you have a full control of what's going on, okay? But at the same time, there's no energy. At the time, the way a train works, I don't know if you ever saw the old trains, it was with wood. So in order to, you would burn the wood, and you had a whole crew of people behind who would put the wood in the furnace, and that furnace would produce the energy necessary for the train to continue advancing. Remember the amount of smoke that was coming out of those trains. I don't know if you ever saw them in real, but it was incredible. Now, if you ask a question, who is driving the train? So the first thing that comes to mind is, well, the driver. So the guy is driving. Well, so here it goes. It's true that he's called the captain, but the same thing with the old boats. Remember the old boats? Same thing. You have the guy, the captain is by the wheel, and he's deciding if he goes right, he goes left, he goes straight, he goes backwards, whatever. It's his power decision. Who is the captain? He's the captain. But at the end, the guy in the back, the one who is putting the fuel, the one who is putting the wood to burn, if he stops his job, he falls asleep, you could be doing this the whole day. You're not going anywhere. So it's a little bit the mashal. One always thinks that the driver is God. The Rav Chaim Mivolozhin tells you, well, sorry, the captain is you. You're the captain. And God is going to be putting the fuel. He's going to put, well, if he doesn't put the fuel, then obviously your train is not going to go through. But you are sending him the message. You're telling him, hey, I need 3 more logs in there. Or I need 4 more logs. You take it to the right, you take it to the left. You are the driver. You are the captain. And he's fueling it because he's the one doing the job. So yes, he's involved, of course, but you are the one sending him the message. You're taking it to the right, taking it to the left. You're taking the direction that you decide. And that's a tremendous amount of responsibility. And that's what you are called Tselem Elokim. Tselem Elokim, to the image of God, that Elokim is all power, doing things from nothing. You're doing things from nothing, because the ramifications that will happen for good or the opposite are going to be coming from an unrelated behavior that comes from oneself, in action, in whatever area of life, and everything being that you are the main driver. Everything you do is going to play a role in that. So God is second in position, not first in position, which is crazy. Now He did put the rules in place so that you follow according to that. Yes.
Can we explain with that the fact that we see people who don't keep Torah, for example, Reshaim, and they still have a good life? Meaning that they send a message to God, but like they do their averot, whatever, but at the same time, God is still continuing to give them life and, like you said, fuel in the direction that they want.
I don't know. I'm not quite sure exactly what they're going.
Meaning that you take full responsibility for what you're doing. There is no straight, direct consequence from your action. If you do something good, you get good. If you do something bad, you get bad. That's not how it works. You can be something.
But I mean,
somebody's going to do something bad. cannot say, oh, but God wanted that to happen. That's what I'm trying to say.
Well, that definitely is true. You're responsible for your actions, but bigger than you. I think here is much bigger picture than ourselves. It's not only, I don't have my own, you're going back to one. It could be a little bit more complex than that. I don't know if I'm...
Okay.
I don't know.
Isn't she asking the ultimate question, Sadiq Veralo? So you can't...
She's trying to explain...
The ultimate question in the world. It's very hard.
No, nobody has an answer to that.
It's impossible, right?
Right, but I'm not sure. I don't understand how you wanted to relate that to what we were saying. Can you explain again? Like, what was your point of view?
Meaning that God is going to go into your direction. If you send a positive message to Hashem, He sends you back a positive outcome. If you send Him a negative message, you don't necessarily. Like, my question was more, do you receive...
You're contradicting yourself. You're saying the opposite, meaning...
Yeah, you're right.
That's why I'm a little confused. Right? It's like the opposite. You're saying, although you sent a negative message, God is still... He has to follow. Well, that's always true, but not in the outcome. I don't know why... I don't see how it's connected to whatever. Ralo or Tovlo.
So forget it. We'll probably learn that later then. Okay, fine. Sorry.
No, he's actually not going to mention the Tzadik Ralo, from what I remember at least.
No?
No, I don't think so. Now, the point in Shar Gimel, he discusses a lot the fact that God, you could force God into your shtuya. That's for sure. And that's beautiful, by the way. It means that Hashem is look, it's very simple. If He gives you life for everything, right, in a sense, and you're doing something against His will, and you're still able to do it, that means that you dragged Him into something He didn't want to be a part of. That's true. He's going to be a part of it, whatever, because that could be, related to what we're saying here. It means that if He's in the car with you, right? You said you're the pilot. He's there with you, so then you're going to be a part of it. If He's fueling the boat, then although you're taking the wrong direction, He gave you the choice. That's the choice of life. When you were born, He said, look, you have the choice to do right and to do bad. And although I am the one who is fueling you with life, I will continue fueling you because that's the deal we had. So yes, is He going to accompany you? But I don't see how that would play in a result. I don't see that playing in a result at all. This is just the rule of life, meaning that you have the right to the wrong. And God will be down with you. Maybe that's what it means. I'm going to be with you, whether you do the right thing or you do the wrong thing. I'm there with you. I'm going to be with you. Let's get out of there together. It's a comforting thought that you're not alone. We'll see in Shar Gimel, he talks a little bit more about that, but I don't see that playing in the result. In the result, I don't see how that would play. I don't think so. Anyways, anything else, ladies and gentlemen?
Yeah, Rab. What I'm thinking that this freedom that we have to make the world, because what you are saying is that we are making the world.
I mean, this is a tremendous concept of responsibility for us.
Yeah.
Don't sit back and say, I'm a passenger. You're a driver, you're not a passenger.
But for the other side, there is a master plan. So I guess that this freedom is limited, because I guess that if He has certain plans and we are doing all the humanity doing things that is not going to fulfill this plan, that maybe it was what's happened now with the coronavirus, that like
I don't know the coronavirus, I don't know.
I don't know. I'm saying that He stopped the world because something maybe is not.
I don't know. But no, it's staying a little general. Your question is an excellent question, by the way. It's an excellent question. And inevitably, we were going to come back to that at one point. But you're right. The question is excellent. If I am the player, then when is it, or is there a moment that God, He wants the world to go one way or another, right? So let's say Now, it's discussed in the previous subject when I mentioned, although it was not really the subject, when I mentioned Bechira, it is mentioned there. It's a very interesting topic. Is there a moment that God says, hey, that's it, I have to intervene and I have to jump in? The answer is when it becomes historic, when it becomes of major proportions, then God could come and say, hey, that's it. Did you come to destroy my world? Sometimes God could change the rule. But you're talking already about the moment of the exception. Right? It's like if, again, you have an owner of a company who puts the young executive board, he wants the company to have a fresh start. And he says, you know what? I'll be on the sidelines. Right? I'll be following what you tell me. Yes, as long as it's working pretty well, even if there are some mistakes, we're going to learn from those mistakes. If he sees the company plunging completely, it would be suicide not to say, that's it. Now I have to jump in, I have to do something, because if not, we're going to. So yes, the answer is normally at 90%, I don't have a number, but normally that's the rule. But like every rule, it could be changed for the necessity. It is discussed, the Shlach Kadosh does discuss this, although he's one of the most open on this topic, saying that man really shapes the world. But it could be, sometimes God could decide to his discretion, this time, I'm sorry, but I have to jump in. Why? Because I need the state of Israel to be created. Because I need there's certain things that you need a certain push, a certain siyata dishma somewhere that say, oh, this is not the regular. Could it happen? Yes, God could bend the rule if it's necessary for the direction that he wants to take. But on the personal responsibility, which is what this Sefer is coming to say, on the personal responsibility, you are the author of not only your life, but almost like saying, you're almost like the author of, quote unquote, God's life, which means God decided, I'm going to be following what you tell me to do, and I'll execute what you're telling me. And this is tremendously powerful. Your question is excellent. So there's got to be, at one point, God could come and say, not now, or not here. That's not what I had in mind. And,
no, I'm sorry, but I think that this also happened in the personal life, in personal decisions. So maybe this is explain a little bit what your sister was telling, that sometimes we give a strength in the positive, but the answer is not positive. Or sometimes we do something wrong and we have results that are not good. So
but that's only if the premise is that whatever you send, you're going to receive exactly the thing.
No,
if it's a little bigger than that. Could be in a sense you're saying maybe got a different plan. So it could be that you behave phenomenal, but the plan was different for whatever reason. It could.
No, when I'm trying to say,
I don't know if it would be right though. In a sense, it would be like it's not fair. If you put the rule in place and you tell me if I'm bechukotai telechu, So that's why I prefer to go back to this is the $1 million question. I don't know if we're going to get an answer to that, because at the end of the day, the guy behaved phenomenal. The law, we're studying it. He could come to God and say, come on, you made me a whole Sefer of Nefesh Ha'Chaim here. We discussed Selem Elokim. I did everything I had to do. I had a miserable life. The question could still come back.
Yeah. No, when I'm trying to point that I am understanding that it's a relative freedom. It's a relative power. It's not the top. It's not the total. It's for this world in relative.
Could be. It's more than that, though. We're looking a little bit too much into our little world. I think it's much bigger than that, as we're going to discover. But
thank you.
All right. Well, ladies and gentlemen, if we are done, then we are done. Anyone else? Okay. Well, have a great day.
Thank you, Rabbi.
At 3 p.m. like this, it's a good break from
doing nothing.
From doing nothing. We'll see you on Wednesday, same time, 3 p.m. on Wednesday. Be well, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you.
You all.
Thank you.